This little vanity is in pristine condition. I washed it with Dixie Belle White Lightning and rinsed it really well. And the finish on the light wood is dark, but I realize it's not really embedded into the wood. I sanded the top with my orbital sander and discovered how light the wood underneath really was. The piece seems to be a reproduction of a Queen Anne style with a nod to French provincial. I was planning a modestly dark, colorful finish. I didn't think I would need to do any special primer with my dark paint choices. I filled some of the small dents and creases with Dixie Belle brown mud, and I had several colors that I was going to use as a blend on this piece. And this is a decoupage that I was planning on using on the top, and some decor molds on the front. And I used their modeling material to create the molds. These molds were tricky to me because they stayed really soft for a long time. Plus, I worked on this in the summer here in the heat and humidity, and everything took a long time to dry. They wanted to stick into the molds. If anyone has used these before, leave me a comment on your solution to how floppy they are when you take them out. I wanted them to be just a little hardened so that I didn't squash them when I placed the tape over the front to hold them on. They came out well, but it was challenging. You can see here how soft they are. This was a mixture of my own blend for the legs, and I used Dixie Belle coffee bean and blended it with the aubergine for the lower part of the legs. And I was planning on adding black wax and some metallics to these lower legs also. And coffee bean is one of my favorite colors. It's so rich. A little challenging with my video here. Here we go, it's gonna fall on the floor. They were just what the piece needed though to dress it up a little in the front. And after painting them and adding some colored waxes, I think they came out really nice. So on the lower part of the legs, I used Modern Masters copper metallic paint, and the details above the copper metallic paint are white gold, actually Art Alchemy champagne metallic and mixed with Art Alchemy white metallic. And I thought it was a really good color to accent the copper. And in the end, I added a small stripe, a black stripe near the bottom of the leg. I really kind of let the piece lead me when it came to the design. I had an idea, but I wasn't exactly 100% sure what I was going to do. So I let these decoupage art pieces kind of lead the way when it came to the design. I was going to place it in the middle as it came in one piece, but then I decided to cut it in half. I cut it in half and placed one picture on the top left corner and the other picture on the lower right. And I painted a 7-color blend over the top and actually washed it over the edges of the decoupage. It's interesting because the stencil has a sort of harlequin design behind the pictures of the queens, and I happen to have a stencil which is called Patterns, and it has that design, so I placed that around the top also. So right here I'm doing, rather than using a primer base coat, this is really just Dixie Belle drop cloth. I wanted everything in the decoupage design to stand out clearly behind my painted surface, so that's why I chose this off-white color. And it went on just nicely. Nothing bled through, just as I had imagined. It really was just a more of just the stain that was on this reproduction piece. It came out really nice. Now I used a satin clear coat to place these decoupage arts. And as I said earlier, it's been really hot and humid here. And things just weren't drying the way I had anticipated. So normally I would have put down the clear coat, placed my decoupage pieces, softened them out, and then added the, you can see me dropping my paintbrush again, adding a clear coat over the top right away pretty much. But this I actually had to wait several hours. I placed them in the morning and then did the top coats in the afternoon. So this piece took quite a while longer to produce just because of the heat and humidity. I also knew that if I put them down really, really wet with the clear coat, that it was going to add bumps and wrinkles, and I hoped to avoid that. And you can see how nice and clearly the background of the drop cloth stands out behind those decoupage. So here I started working on the top of the body of the piece. This is a blend of Dixie Belle Muscadine Wine, Flamingo, Tea Rose, Colonel Mustard, Peony, and Palmetto, which really went on the very top. And I blended the Muscadine Wine and the Flamingo down into the legs. And then I blended the coffee bean back up into the Muscadine Wine. And you can see how nicely this piece took the Dixie Belle paint. It really went on perfectly. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I did scuff sand it so that I was assured that the paint would hold. And there's the Flamingo. So I don't know if you had noticed, but I do use a flat synthetic brush to place the paints, and then I do my blends with a boar's head round bristle brush. It just works for me. And there are other ways to do it, and that's correct as well. Whatever works for you. And this is just the first coat. So in the end, it blends in very, very subtly. And I'm just more or less placing the lighter color where I think I'm going to have it. It might change, but it actually won't, but it could. It's likely to change before I get finished with a piece. So here you can see that I'm actually blending the coffee bean up into the Muscadine Wine. So the top of the piece, I had no real rhyme or reason. What I did was I blended everything into the decoupage, and I kind of let that decide what colors were going to be there. And you'll see that there are actually no real yellows in the decoupage pieces, but because they're blended into the Flamingo and the Muscadine Wine and the Tea Rose, those browns and deep reds really pick up on these colors. And I'm actually going to paint right into the decoupage art. I like to use some water here. It's my second coat really, so it has the drop cloth underneath, and now I'm putting on my colors, and here's where I'll use a little water mist to help blend these colors. By the way, the decoupage is called A Pair of Queens. So with my blends, I'll I'll use circular motions. I also go horizontally and vertically, and I just try to get every direction so that that blend is as smooth as possible. And with chalk paints, if you hit it again with your mister, you'll reactivate the paint, so you can always get your blends to go more smoothly. My kitty cat loves to help me paint. And that furniture edge is actually going to take a coat of the Art Alchemy Champagne metallic paint. You can see that I sort of make a mess when I'm painting. So here you can see that it's coming along. Now to solidify the decoupage pieces into the top, I used a Redesign with Prima clear stamps to go around the edge in the Bohemian florals, which came out really nice. Altogether, I used a lot of mixed media on this. I used transfers, the Redesign with Prima pair of queens. I used stencils. I used the molds and waxes and the paints. So by the time I was done, I had quite a variation of product. Here I added a few more stripes. Stripes are my thing, and I love to add stripes. I needed a little help with the straight line, so I put a small piece of tape underneath. Everything I used, actually, I'm listing underneath the video in case you're interested in finding out more about what I used on this piece. It will be listed there. Here you can see that champagne metallic edging on the front and sides of the desk, and I added some stripes in the architectural designs. And I had the Redesign with Prima French letters, and my thought was to add some French writing, but when I saw the word queen, I said, oh, perfect. So I added that to the back. This piece is nice because it won't matter where it's placed in the room, it will be decorated on all sides. In the future, I'm going to make a tutorial about the stripes, because I do get questions about that. Even though I waited 24 hours to put this transfer on, because it was so humid and hot, I believe things just didn't dry as they normally would. So it was somewhat tricky getting that transfer to adhere. Even on a good day, you should wait 24 hours at least before you put a transfer over fresh paint. And there's no clear coat here. This is going on fresh, untreated paint. Now you'll notice I could only burnish it with my fingers, because when I tried to burnish it with a tool, it began to peel off. And here you can see on the top, you can see the picture frame stamps that I placed around the decoupage art. I added some stenciling in the front. And I used that gold and white gilding wax to finish the details and corners. Here I use Howard's citrus wax, and I love this product. You can see that I'm almost getting down to the end of it. So I use the clear wax under my gilding waxes. You don't have to, but it gives you a little bit more moving time if you use a clear wax prior to that. You can let it dry. You could put clear wax on, one day and then do your gilding wax the next day. But I typically do it one after another. And I also use it on my drawer slides, and I love to use it inside the drawers. It has a heavenly scent to it. And truth be told, sometimes I add little scents, lavender oils or eucalyptus oils in small bits. You don't need very much. And that helps make things smell really pretty. Those knobs weren't original to the piece, but they were old. And here is the model for the picture. She's not for sale. But I love the way this piece came out.